G'day guys and gal, you may have noticed, or maybe not because no one really gives a shit, that my upload schedule has sort of died this month. No, I haven't given up on YouTube, and no, I didn't succumb to super AIDS or something. I went to Europe, and what a trip it was. We did DEFCON 1 in Amsterdam, did the Greek islands like Milos and Mykonos, went to Ibiza, which was so fun I then went back to Ibiza, did Tomorrowland in Belgium, and yes, my body hates me, but it was a lot of fun. What that does mean, however, is I'm ready to lock in and smash out the rest of the year. We have some insane stuff coming this month. As a teaser, one of those launches includes bringing back a major mini people have been requesting for over a year. It also includes the launch of something quite close to my heart and one of the best dioramas we have ever made, which will also arrive this month. That plus a fierce release schedule and an energy born from a 5-week European bender means we're ready to send it. I know I may look like a bit of a corpse at the moment, but as Rogaldorn said, we will rebuild. Today we'll go over which faction in 40k is losing the hardest, and if the plot actually progressed, could be destroyed altogether, which obviously won't happen, but let's just pretend the lore isn't dependent on the sales of little plastic figurines. Let's get into it. Looking at the Imperium of Man first, the Imperium is the most powerful faction by far, there is no question about it. The issue is how spread out their power is, very much Roman Empire vibes. They are fighting everyone and their cat simultaneously. However, they are also in a pretty powerful position. 2 of their Primarchs have returned. They haven't been so united in purpose since the Great Crusade. The Custodies are venturing forth into the galaxy in their thousands, and despite Imperium Nihilus being in a pretty grim spot, it has both Dante and the Lion acting as its wardens. So no, we can't even countenance the idea of the Imperium being the weakest faction or losing the most. In saying that, if Guilliman died, the Imperium would eat massive amounts of shit, as it's only really been held together because the gigantic blue space Jesus is back in charge. So despite being number 1 at the moment, things could rapidly change if Guilliman once again decides he's a much better duelist than he actually is and gets murdered by Fulgrim again. Speaking of chaos, they also haven't been this powerful since the Horus Heresy. Almost all of their Trader Primarchs and Legions are active, with the ones who aren't very likely soon to be. Abaddon and Vashtor recently succeeded in their Arcs of Omen campaign ambitions, putting themselves one step closer to some kind of obscure superweapon. Angron is the galaxy's biggest pain in the ass, Fulgrim is about to do something weird and gay, Magnus has been a nerd, and so on. Sure, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. The Death Guard and their Primarch have been benched extremely hard, but with the Great Rift allowing chaos to basically appear and attack anywhere at any time, they are in a very strong position. The extra warp juice in the galaxy making it a lot easier for a shitload of demons to appear. So no, chaos is definitely not losing, and unlike the Imperium with Guilliman, killing Abaddon wouldn't actually do much to slow chaos down. How about the Tyrannids? Well, many believe that the setting is getting kind of pointless because eventually the Nids will just eat everyone. On top of that, victories against the Tyrannids seem pointless as they always go the same way. Tyrannids attack, they get slaughtered, the Swarm Lord appears, the Swarm Lord dies, the Tyrannid fleet is decimated or even destroyed, at great cost to whoever they fought. However, it turns out to be just one tendril of a hive fleet which is never beaten, because even if you take out the main hive fleet, there'll always be splinter fleets that survive, grow, and become the new main hive fleet. Did you know that Hive Fleet Behemoth is still in the setting despite being the first Tyrannid fleet to arrive and despite being destroyed in Ultramar? I get it, you don't want Tyrannid color schemes to become unlore friendly because the Hive Fleet is now extinct, but it does get a bit lame. But I've gotten sidetracked. There are images online like this which make it look like the galaxy is about to get fucking gangbanged by a gazillion Tyrannids. However, it's important to remember that these images are not canon. For all we know, the majority of the Tyrannid strength is already in the Milky Way, making the Nids an actually manageable threat. After all, why would they fight so hard and so desperately if they knew they had an infinite mega army about to arrive? However, even if all Nids are currently deployed, there is still an absolute shit ton of them, and they certainly are not in a weak position, especially since creating new horrors like the Norn emissaries. How about the Orcs? Well, the Orcs are an interesting one. They are very cyclical, going from immensely powerful to immensely weak very quickly. Just before the Great Crusade, Orcs were one of the most powerful races in the galaxy. They were everywhere in great number, the most numerous hostile race that the Emperor's Crusader hosts encountered. However, a galactic scale genocide that culminated in the Ullanor campaign knocked the Orcs on their ass and almost made them extinct. However, soon after the heresy, the Beast would arise and make the Orcs the most powerful threat in the galaxy once again, before they were then once again clapped and driven off. In the current setting, the Orcs are numerous, however with their loss to the Tyranids at Octarius, are in a rough spot. If it wasn't for Gazkill and his ultra-wire of a metric fuckton of Orcs, they wouldn't be very relevant. So while Orcs aren't exactly ascendant right now or given much love as a huge antagonist, unless someone defeats Gazkill and destroys his War, far, they're in a pretty solid spot at the moment. A faction that's a bit less solid at the moment is the Eldar. Yes, they are a dying race, but GW should probably cut them a break. The Inari plotline went nowhere and has now more or less been abandoned. The final nail in the coffin was Eldrad himself ditching them in search of a better solution to the Eldars' plight. Almost every craft world has been fucked on or is currently getting fucked on in some capacity. For example, Votann was shattered and now operates as a moving fleet. Iyanden was decimated by the Tyrannids and now is mostly populated by wraiths. Ulthwé is currently under attack by a united Night Lord Legion led by Decimus, and so on. Maiden worlds are slowly and steadily being destroyed, mostly by Tyrannids, and can never be replaced. And the Dark Eldar are just sitting in Comora, which itself is having a shitload of problems. So whilst GW is giving them an incredible range refresh, including a new Phoenix Lord, they are getting bumfucked in the lore, and there doesn't seem to be anything on the horizon that gives them a path to get back on top. How about the Tau? Look, I actually do have an appreciation for the Tau, even as many of you do not. They try their best and, to be fair, are expanding, adapting and growing. However, all of their recent sphere expansions, which are like their crusades, have ended pretty terribly with minimal gains and massive losses. They're also contending with and barely overcoming the bottom feeders of the other factions. For example, Shadow Sun and almost 2 entire spheres worth of warriors could not stop a small fraction of the Death Guard from entering the Startide Nexus, only winning because the Tau God appeared and fucked shit up. Likewise, the Tau have been fighting against the Raven Guard and White Scars, 2 pretty minor Imperial forces, and have been stalemating at best, which look, I'm not mad about. It's lore friendly. The Tau is a smaller, newer empire and isn't as warlike as the other factions. So while it may be hard to say that they are losing the hardest, they definitely aren't winning anything either. What about the Necrons, the Skelly Daddies? I often say that out of all the factions, the Necrons have the most potential. They have the best technology, the most bullshit hacks, are immune to the warp, and the Tyranids have a hard time eating them. The greatest issue is that most of them are still asleep and they love killing each other, which was kneecapping them pretty hard. However, after seeing them in the recent Dawn of Fire novel, where Gilliman himself fought them, it's safe to say the Necrons aren't going anywhere. They are an absolute nightmare to fight against, especially when united. Usually when G-Man takes command of a war zone, the war zone will soon be a victory for the Imperium, but even with himself present, it was hell. However, we did get a pretty awesome scene where it was revealed that the Emperor's sword could also permakill Necrons, frying their reanimation protocol, which did make a Necron overlord go, oh shit, as suddenly it wasn't fun and games anymore. But no, I don't see the Necrons losing much, since their only real predator appears to be themselves. Now for the Leagues of Votann. The Leagues are the new kids on the block, and as such it's hard to say how they are going in the win-loss situation. We do know that they are an empire in decline. Their safety in the core of the galaxy has been compromised, their ancestor cores are starting to get dementia, and they are forced to mine further and further out, making them run into more and more threats, but overall they are pretty content on the sidelines doing their thing. So out of all the factions of 40k, who is currently losing the most? Well, the Imperium is hard pressed. However, they haven't suffered a catastrophic defeat since the fall of Cadia, and every time they do lose, they get a silver lining, whether it be the Lion returning or the Necrons learning to fear death for the first time in 60 million years. Chaos is in a very strong position, able to attack anyone and everyone at the same time, with a limitless, powerful as hell army, so they aren't losing anything. Likewise, the Necrons are powerful as hell, especially as they've been rallied and aligned to very powerful overlords, such as the Silent King or Imhotep. Orcs would potentially be on the losing team if it wasn't for Ghazghkull commanding likely the largest army in the setting. The Tau and the Leagues of Votann are an interesting spot of just sort of doing their own thing. The Tau have never been more powerful than they are now, so it would be strange to say that they are losing the hardest, and the Leagues aren't involved enough yet to be winning or losing, or even have much of an interest in playing. Although I wish the Tyranids were losing, they are way too numerous, and it's a coin flip whether or not they will eventually win from overwhelming numbers. So sadly, even as an Eldar player, I have to admit that the Space Elves are eating the most amount of shit. They have been losing a lot, and the times where they win, they eat so much fat dick that they may as well have lost. Unlike every other faction, Eldar losses are also permanent. Maiden worlds cannot be created, craft worlds cannot be built, Comora cannot be replaced. Eldar also breed slowly, and although their numbers are significantly higher than they were 10,000 years ago, whenever they lose something significant, it's gone for good. I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive GW for the Eldar's current lore situation. There was so much promise with the Inari. An Eldar heist book where they steal the final Crone Sword would have been dope. I'm also worried that with Fulgrim returning, he's gonna fuck up the Eldar even more. Who knows, maybe Fulgrim's return will create an opportunity for the Eldar to become Ascendant, but I would sooner bet on a midget boxing match than that happening. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then Patreon is the place to be. We have high-res 40k fan arts, female nude cosplays, and other goodies for as cheap as $1 a month. You can also pick up a Major Mini, my own range of custom sculpts to build an army around or make your current one unique. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more loser content. Join this call for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.